I'm Aaron with the Pickleball Clinic, and today I'm here with someone who needs no introduction that will give him one anyway. Every sport has athletes that not only rose to fame and gained extreme success early in their careers, but helped grow and define the game. Wilt Chamberlain in basketball, Muhammad Ali in boxing, Jim Brown in football, Arthur Ashe in tennis, and the list goes on. Today, I'm here with one of the greatest pickleball players of all time, a 6-time U.S. Open gold medalist, 4-time national champion, 12-time major champion, 27-year-old from Fort Myers, Florida, energetic player and incredible coach, one of the first players to ever go pro, and a man that helped revolutionize the sport of pickleball, Mr. Kyle Yates. Thanks for coming on.
Oh, this is gonna be great. I like the Wilt Chamberlain. I don't know if we go that far, but I appreciate it.
There we go. The Wilt Chamberlain of pickleball. It's your nickname. So I'm sure you've been asked this many times, but I'd love to hear the Kyle Yates origin story of how you first heard about and got into the sport of pickleball.
Yeah, of course. I've been asked that thousands of times. Everyone wants to know how you get started in pickleball. But, for me, I played some tennis in high school. My uncle who taught me tennis. One day he came and said, "Hey, Kyle, I got a new sport for you. It's just like tennis and ping pong. You're gonna love it. Come play with me." And I go, "Well, what is it called?" So pickleball. I go, "Oh, no, thanks. I'm good. Like, not for me." And sure enough, another week or two later, he's like, "Oh, I'm playing more pickleball. There's some guys that are pretty good. You'd love it. Come play." And I'm like, "I can't. I got a tennis tournament this weekend. I got school. I don't have time for that." Sure enough, a couple months go by, and eventually he's like, "All right, Kyle, what are you doing Saturday?" And I checked, and I'm like, "Oh, crap, I don't have any excuses." And he's like, "I'll pick you up at 8 o'clock. We're going to go down to the Waxahachie Rec Center in Fort Myers, and we're going to go play some pickleball." So he comes, scoops me. We get there. He hands me these paddles and a little wiffle ball looking thing, squishy indoor ball. We walk in, and it's all, seniors playing on wood floor. But I'm watching, I was like, "Yeah, this game actually looks kind of fun," but there was no one my age playing. But there were 3 courts. On court A were some guys in like their 40s and 50s that were just smacking the ball at each other back and forth. And I go, "Oh, let's go play with those guys." And my uncle's like, "Oh no, you're not ready for them." I'm like, "Oh, come on, like I'll kill them." And he goes, "Well, just play a game of singles against me. If you beat me, you can go play with them." And so I play against him, and he kicks my butt. And I was kind of upset. I was competitive, whatever. And so my uncle beats me, and I was like, "All right, you're on again next week." And so from then I was hooked, and I ended up mixing with those guys. And some of those guys back then, if you're familiar, like the best player in my area is Barry Waddell back then. And if you're not familiar, he's a senior pro player now, and is actually a senior pro U.S. Open champion in pickleball. So it's kind of cool to see where it started. And now, we both, U.S. Open champions like years later. I mean, that was 2011 when I met them and started playing. There were no outdoor courts anywhere. And anywhere in Lee County where I was at, there's no outdoor courts. So we'd go to the local tennis courts, and I would always have a bungee cord in my bag and chalk. And we would have to pull the net down the middle with the bungee cord and then chalk lines to play every single time. So that was annoying. And we got in trouble a few times for vandalism. So we go to another set of tennis courts, do the same thing till we get kicked out. Go to the next set of tennis courts, get kicked out. So eventually there were 4 outdoor courts built near my house, and it just kind of spiraled out of control from there.
Wow, absolutely. Yeah, I think the pickleball lovers have to kind of go the extra mile to play their game, whether it's bringing chalk and a bungee cord, whether it's annoying some tennis players. We got to do what we do to get our
we got to do what we got to do. Yeah. So that was the struggle back then. So nowadays it's so accessible. There's courts everywhere, people to play with everywhere. Back then it was hard to find 3 other decent players. It was hard to find courts. So we're pretty spoiled nowadays, I'd say.
Absolutely. I mean, I think the way that the sport evolved for you specifically, everything you did seems to have been worth it.
So far, so good.
So you're one of the few pro players that are still playing today that were around during the true developing stages of pro pickleball. Can you describe the climate of pro pickleball when you first started, and then how it's evolved to what it is today?
Sure. Well, when I first started, we didn't even get paid for pro events. I remember like nationals, I think I got 3rd in the open division in mixed doubles, my first nationals, and I got like the check for like a couple $100. I was like, "What is this? You get paid for this?" Because you'd fly to tournaments around the country and play open division, and you could win medals, but you wouldn't get paid for it. We basically traveled just for the practice against the other players, for the experience. But then Let's see, sometime around maybe 2015, 2016, tournament started having some prize money, just a little bit, $500 for first place, things like that. Then the first US Open came around in 2016 and just kind of just put everything, flipped everything on its head, right? Now all of a sudden tournaments taken a lot more seriously. Again, my first nationals, the team that won was Wesley Gabrielson and Enrique Ruiz. They were the best team in the world back then. Wesley was pretty much the best player in the world. If you guys think the name sounds familiar, he was on one of the MLP teams this year. He was actually sick for the first event, so he couldn't play, but he's still a pro player, still one of the top players. But he's kind of the only other top pro player that I know that still plays like at that high level. But Daniel Moore was the name. He came in kind of the same year that I did, the first nationals 2014, and he won the singles and was basically the best player in the world for 2 years around then. And then, he kind of names like Marcin Respetsky comes in with singles, and then Tyson shows up, and then Ben shows up. But it was funny because every year there'd be a few new guys kind of coming in, and they would kind of like, stir up some stuff. They kind of come in, do really well. But then, take a couple years to really, really break through. But nowadays, there's so many good players. Back then, you go to nationals and you'd play in the first couple rounds. You're playing against 4 or 5 players until you can get to like the quarterfinals, and then there's 5-0 players, then maybe some better players. Nowadays, everybody's good.
Right.
There's 6.0 players all over the place. So I think it's just the depth of the field. Obviously the ceiling's gotten higher. People have just gotten better, but the depth is what's amazing. Because back then there was only a few guys that you thought could win the tournament. Or like really pose a threat. Now it's, anybody can make a run, which is exciting to see. You still have some of those top guys at the top winning most of the time, but those first couple rounds are no cakewalks anymore.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like back then, if you had, someone that could coach you really well, or you had some natural talent, you can get to the top. But nowadays, there was, back then there was a couple people that had that ability, whereas nowadays the depth of knowledge around the game is growing so fast. Pro players like yourselves are taking young players under their wing, and there's just more and more ability, for up and coming players to actually get to the next level.
A lot more talent, a lot more athleticism in the sport now. I think players back in the day played a lot. I would say, if anything, more strategically. That's how the game was played. You had to play a little bit smarter. You had to, find weaknesses, things like that. But nowadays, players are so good at speeding balls up and attacking. Their hands are so fast. It begins played a little bit more aggressively, I think, which is why people speeding it up more. Yeah. But I feel like players back then played, like I said, smarter in a way, a little more strategically, because you didn't want to just get in too many hands battles.
Right.
And nowadays, everybody's hands are so good. You just kind of speed it up, and it's a 50-50 slap fest. So.
Yeah. How much harder or easier do you think it is to become a pro pickleball player today than at the beginning stages of your career?
It's a great question. I actually have been asked this question a few times, and my answer surprised people at first, because I say it's actually easier today than it used to be. And I say that because the sport's so much more accessible, right? So back 5 years ago, so let's say the climate of 2016, okay, there's certain pockets where there's some good players. So like a team like Matt Wright and Lucy Kovalova came out of nowhere. They came out of Wichita, but no one really knew that there were any good players in Wichita. But there was a good little hub there with some good players. They had like Jack Oxler, Chris Heck, and some other good. And then they picked up like Jay DeVilliers and Pat Smith. So they had a good hub there. I was lucky where I was at, one, because we had, Ben kind of moved in right there, but I had some good players to start. But I would go to the Villages a lot and play with Brian Staub, Matt Staub, Robert Elliott, some good players from there. So that's what helped me. Seattle had a good little hub of players. Arizona had a little hub of players, but you basically had to be near one of these hot spots of good players to get any practice, because there was no one else anywhere else. I know some places in the Midwest, they had a couple little spots, but again, you had to be surrounded by those top players to get the right practice, or you had to travel a lot to these tournaments that don't even pay prize money to get practice. Nowadays, there's good players everywhere, there's courts everywhere. It's a lot easier to get the practice you need to get to that level. And so I think that's helping a lot. And obviously the ceiling's higher, but it's a lot quicker to get there. Instead of climbing up a ladder, you're walking up an escalator, if that makes sense. So I would say it's easier to get to that pro level now, but obviously winning at the pro level is always going to be difficult.
Right. So the growth of pickleball, it's always been a fun subject for me. We've heard tons of different estimates about how many people might be playing in the future. Guesses have been 20 million or 30 million by 2030. I think those are, a little bit optimistic, but, it'd be great if it gets there. I'd like to hear your vision of where pickleball is going to be by, let's say, 2030 on the recreational side and the professional side.
I think it's going to the moon, to be honest, recreationally, at least. Professionally, I've always been a little bit hesitant and nervous. I wasn't ever sure if pickle would ever become a real professional sport, but I've never really cared. I just enjoy playing, and I figure if I can make a living doing it, I don't have to be a millionaire playing pickleball, but if I can make a living and do pickleball, I don't know why I would do anything else. But so professionally, I don't know how it's going to get. The PPA has been doing a pretty good job of kind of getting it out of mainstream a little bit. Finally getting some more airtime on TV and things like that. But it's still a lot more fun to watch in person. So I think we're still struggling to get views online and on TV and get people interested. But recreationally, who doesn't love playing this game? I mean, you got all these celebrities playing, in their downtime, and all these other athletes playing on their downtime. It's a sport for everybody. So I think recreationally, it's going to keep growing. I think that's what you'll see with the trends is so many, like such a high percentage of pickleball players don't play tournaments, don't really follow that stuff. The majority of people just play recreationally for fun, and that's it. And I think that's kind of the bulk of the sport. I think that's most people, regular people that just like to play for fun. And so I think that part, that's going to keep growing. I mean, people just love pickleball. And then once you play, you kind of hooked and you don't really end up doing much else. It kind of takes over a little bit. Because why would you go play anything else if you can go play pickleball? It's so much more fun. So, I think recreationally, you can throw out some numbers, 20 million, 30 million, sure. But it's going to keep growing. It's going to double a couple more times, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you. People in the pickleball world, there's no need to convince them. They understand how incredible the sport is. Like you said, just got to try one time and you're hooked. But there are a few sad souls out there that have heard the word pickleball and still, batted an eye, will still cringe a little bit. For those people that, aren't as open to trying the sport, what's your pitch? What are you going to say to someone that says, "Nah, I don't want to try it. Sounds weird"?
Take the stick out of your ass. I don't know why you wouldn't try something just because it has a silly name like that, like especially a sport. Like, who cares what it's called? I mean, right? I mean, listen. I mean, I like I said, back in the day when I started playing, I was in college and I'd go play on the weekends at the villages, and my friends would be like, "Hey, come to the party Saturday night." I go, "I can't. I'm out of town."
Yeah.
Like, well, where are you going? I'm visiting some friends somewhere else. So I'm going to play pickleball with seniors all weekend. But so back then I was a little embarrassed by it. But nowadays, I mean, now and most of the time when I ask someone or tell someone I do pickleball, they've heard of it at least. So I think it just takes time getting used to it, because the stigma there is if you've never heard of it, pickleball, it sounds funny. But once you'll have heard it and it's a thing, it becomes more normal. And I think people just think of pickleball as just, a silly game for seniors. But over time, I mean, when people see enough Major League Pickleball highlights and things like that, like they're going to realize, okay, it's a legit thing. And they could always laugh at it, but I'm sure people scoff at other sports too. I mean, I'm sure the same people like scoff at badminton or squash or other racket sports. That people laugh at table tennis. That's a legitimate Olympic sport, and they make movies like Balls of Fury about it, where it's super silly. But it's fine. It's fine to have that perception where it's fun and silly, because all right, well, then it's fun. Like, sorry, it's not. Sorry, don't take it too seriously. I'd rather us play a fun, silly sport than one that we take too seriously.
Yeah.
So
I'm
all for it.
I'd love to see the friends that were kind of messing with you for going to play pickleball in college and kind of what they say now.
They're fans now. They're fans now. Yeah, now they're jealous.
I'm sure. So, a couple questions about the actual play style of pickleball. I want to get your views on. In terms of the future of pickleball at the highest levels, do you see this sport evolving to have more third shot drives and less stinks, or the other way around?
I think with the skill of players nowadays, the game's definitely speeding up. So I think very, very soon, if it really has already started, but I think it's going to get even more pronounced. I think people will start doing more with their serve. They're not just hitting it harder, but start, getting weird little angle serves off the court, or just moving it around a little more to cause a little bit of mayhem on the return. And then I think people are going to get very aggressive on the third shot. You're seeing a lot more drives with the third, And if you're, the thing is, we didn't used to do it because the skill or the quality of the tennis players and whatnot wasn't there back 5, 6, 7 years ago. So you could drive 3 or 4 balls, but you're probably going to miss one. And so is it worth the risk? But nowadays people are their drives are so good, so low, so consistent that you're not really getting punished for them as much.
Yeah.
So I think it's going to be, big or tricky serve and then attack immediately. And the other team basically has to, get the ball down or get out of trouble immediately to start the rally. And I still think you're going to see plenty of dinking. I think dinking is still very important. You don't really want to speed up and just initiate a silly hands battle. But I do think teams are going to try to find new and quicker ways to get advantage of the points. I think people are just kind of getting more desperate because no one wants to go out there and dink for 10 hours. Right. So I think people are pulling triggers on lower balls, earlier in the rallies to try to get things going sooner because they don't want to dink. I still, so it's, you're going to have hands in this game. You're definitely going to have some fast hands because it is speeding up.
Yeah, I definitely get what you're saying in terms of there being a relationship with bigger serves and then more opportunities for a drive. If you're doing more in the serve, especially with topspin and getting a higher return, that's going to give players much more of a license to go for that big drive.
Oh yeah, especially this thing that Navratil started. It's if you got a big tricky serve and the other team hits a kind of a weak return, they're in trouble because you step up to the next ball and you crack it right at their shoelace, and now they're the team on defense popping the ball up. Yep. And so instead of the serving team at a disadvantage, it's turning the other way around, where now the serving team actually has a chance to win rallies pretty quickly. So, I liked the rally scoring at MLP because of that. Is every point mattered? Because right now, with your serve, if you don't lose the point on your serve, you kind of have a green light to be super aggressive, and you don't really get punished for it. So we'll see if that trend continues. I think it will.
So you brought up Zane's signature serve. In terms of signature shots that players have coined, you have a pretty interesting shot. It's sort of this fake backhand dink where then you'll flip your hand around, go for a speed up down the middle, some magic wand type of shot. Not sure if you have a specific name for it, but tons of young players like Gabe Tardillo and some others are starting to really use that. Yeah. A couple of my doubles partners use it. So I'm curious how you came up with this shot. Maybe you can give us a little demo. I know you don't want to, give your competition too much, but
it's slippery for sure. The KY special. Okay. No, I actually learned it. I actually have to give credit to Steve Dawson. Steve Dawson, if you guys don't know, is Callan Dawson, who's a PPA pro player. His dad, senior pro player, Steve Dawson from California. He actually showed it to me years ago. We were doing a Picklepalooza event in California, and he was doing it in practice. And he was like, "Oh, I got this new shot. I'm working on." And it's a backhand dink, and as you're falling through, you twist it open and hit a kind of inside out forehand. And it's hard to read. You can go a lot of different ways with it, and it just kind of catches people off guard. And so he showed it to me, and I went and worked on it. I'm like, "Ooh, that's nasty." And so I kind of got really good at it. So I've thrown it in occasionally. Did a video teaching someone in, and now all these kids, these days, they don't practice the fundamentals anymore. Right. Now they're doing all these trick shots and sick tricks and things. And but it's cool. I'm glad. I'm glad people are doing some fun, creative stuff. That's what the sport needs. But they're getting too good at it. I think Gabe tried it against me in a tournament recently, and I stopped it back and like, no. You're trying to the wrong guy.
Right. No, I appreciate the element of people trying to hit shots that allow them to have more fun. But at the end of the day, you want to also just do what's going to win you the point. But that works though. If you catch someone off guard, definitely people have done it to me, and so I know how detrimental it can be. So from all your years playing and coaching, could you give us the most important tip for beginner players, and then also the most important tip for high level players?
That's sure. Yeah. I tell people this all the time, actually, for like beginner players, 3.0, 3.5, even 4.0. I ask them, are most points won by someone hitting a winner, or most points lost by someone making an error? And unanimously, I'll say, oh, usually someone misses. I go, all right, then what are you trying to win the point all the time for? So I think the most important thing is just consistency and not trying to do too much. We're not all Ben Johns. We can't always hit these miraculous shots. Sometimes just making the smart, simple, efficient play is more than enough to win the rally. Especially if you're trying to play against better players. nobody wants to play with you. You're making a bunch of mistakes or doing a bunch of silly stuff. But if you're one of those players who just gets the ball in play, keeps it down, plays patient, smart, doesn't make a lot of mistakes, you're fun to play with because you keep rallies alive, right? You know, you're not going to kill points. So for most of those, newer players getting started, I think just focus on playing smart and simple and not trying to get too fancy at first. That usually helps people. And then for high level players, it's a lot of playing against better players, getting in better games. Because you gotta see the shots coming at you. I see a lot of 4-5, 5-0 players. They think they're really good locally, and then they go play against a real pro, and every shot that they're used to hitting, that they're used to working, doesn't work anymore.
Right.
I think if you're looking to go pro, I mean, you got to play against pros. You're not going to go pro playing against 5-0 players.
Right. For a player in that 4-5, 5-0 range, looking to maximize their growth, get to the next level, I feel like two schools of thought when people are signing up for big tournaments. One camp is that, I want to play up. I want to see how I can do, get a couple pro wins, get a couple 5-0 wins. And then the others are like, I'm playing in a national, I'm playing in a golden ticket. I want to try and go as far as I can. Let me play my actual level. Which kind of school of thought do you think is going to help maximize your growth and help build the best player?
It depends on the tournament. It depends on the tournament. If it's a legitimate tournament, even if it's like a PPA or APP tournament, I would recommend you play in an event where you feel like you can win some matches, but possibly not medal. So I think if you're in a bracket where you think you could potentially get like 4th or 5th, you're in the right spot. Because if you have a good day, you get on the podium. If you have a bad day, well, maybe you get a win. You go 1 and 2. But if you're signed up for a pro division, you're going 0 and 2, and you're losing. I mean, shoot, I felt bad. My first round match, my last tournament, we won 11-0, 11-0, first round. I'm like, I feel bad. And they're not bad players, but you're paying extra money to play in that pro division, and then you're going out and you're just getting spanked 2 games. So, are you really learning a whole lot? Like, do you really know what you did wrong, what you need to work on? So I'd rather you play in a division where you feel like you can maybe go 2 and 2, you get some wins, lose to the better teams, and then you learn from there. So it's tough. But if it's a smaller pro tournament, the pro bracket's not as big, and you think you can maybe kind of steal a win, and go for it. But yeah, I see some people sign up for the pro division and they just go 0 and 2 every time. And, they say, I just love playing against the pros. But honestly, at that point, you're probably losing to a mid-tier team. And then you're in the backdraw against a mid-tier team. You might not even get to play against the top pros anyways. So
right. I mean,
it's tough to see.
If you're confident in your game and you are playing pro and you want to try and break into that level, you need some degree of luck. I mean, the person you played, sure, they lost 0-0, but they also played Kyle Yates. I mean, they maybe could have got a little more lucky and squeaked a close match or got the 3 games with somebody else. But
they hit too many balls to my partner. If they had played to me, I probably would have made more errors. But no, I mean, they're good players. They're good players. It's one of those teams that if they played like a 5-0 division, if there was a 5-0 in pro, they'd probably maybe take a bronze medal or something. So it's tough. So I'd say if it's a big tournament, just play to do well. Like if you're going to nationals, play in your level. But if it's a local thing, if it's just local pros, go for it. Try, see how you do.
Yeah. So I want to switch up gears for a sec. You built your image as a pickleball icon and began your journey as a player. Though while you're still competing at the highest level, you've also moved into the business side of things with ventures like PB 1965. So I'm wondering if you always envisioned yourself getting into the business side of pickleball, or if this transformation was something that just naturally occurred.
I never envisioned myself getting into the apparel business. I've never really been a fashionista. But yeah, no, it was really, Randy Sussman's fault. Buddy of mine, I just met him at some pickleball tournaments in Naples and whatnot. I played with Paddletech, and for the longest time, they really didn't have much apparel. And so I just go buy my own clothes and just logo myself. And eventually I had someone come up to me and ask, if I'd get into business with them with making clothes. I said, well, as long as I can design the clothes, pick the material, whatever, yeah, I'm in. And Randy was able to do that for me with PB 1965, and it's been going really well. It's been a lot. It's cool to see kind of the back end of some of the pickleball stuff, not the player side, but some of the business stuff, with the vendors, things like that. So I'm learning a lot there. But yeah, it just kind of, again, it's just another one of those things that just kind of came out of nowhere and spiraled out of control, but I've had a lot of fun with it. Especially through COVID, tournaments kind of stopped for a while, and pickleball in general kind of stopped for a while. And the realization hit me where, I'm not going to be playing professionally forever. So I might as well learn to do some other things too. Getting into the business stuff. Also, we're running a tournament in Atlantic City, New Jersey in September, which is gonna be a lot of fun. September 19th and 24th, Atlantic City Open. It's gonna be indoors, but we are we've been putting a lot of work into that. We're really excited for that. It's gonna be on the center court's gonna be on CBS Sports Network. I'm excited about it because it is the first time that I've actually been able to set up and run a tournament how I want to, and give the feedback that I think the tournament needs. So from 10 years of pickleball tournament experience, finding all the little things that tournaments do wrong and trying to fix them. I'm pretty excited. I think it's going to be a fun event for those who happen to show up. But it's going to be wild. We're actually stealing the U.S. Open center court vibes in a way where we're making the center court like just pop in place. Like I'm telling people that you're gonna feel more like you're at a hockey game than a pickleball tournament.
Nice.
And it's indoors. So we control the climate, no rain, but it's gonna be sweet. So yeah, dealing with that, and that's been a lot. I'm used to going out and practicing and training and doing my thing, but just with the business side, obviously, I'm sure you're familiar. Just, the amount of meetings and calls and things that take over and be a lot more organized. It was a struggle for me at first, but getting used to it and really appreciating opportunities, and it's been fun.
Absolutely, that's awesome. I think it's gonna be the biggest indoor pickleball tournament in pickleball history, right?
Oh yeah. We get 42 courts, 43 courts.
Wow.
Indoors, the convention center in Atlantic City. It's gonna be sweet, right by the beach. So yeah, it's gonna be awesome.
That's pretty awesome. You've been with Paddletech for a while as a sponsored player during a time where you see many players frequently switching sponsorships. I'm curious how you've kept such a good relationship with them over a long period of time, and how that's been such a successful partnership. In a world where there's just so many switches going on from other players.
Sure. Yeah. Well, a little backstory. My first nationals 2014. I was playing with the Paddletech Bantam EXL that I had bought in Bonita Springs, Florida. I had bought it because they had a 5-year no dead spot guarantee. So if you bought it in, it was kind of like beat up. They could trade it and get a new one. And that was cheap because I'd been going through all these graphite paddles that were kept breaking. And so I bought it just for that, and it felt amazing. The composite core as opposed to the Nomex and graphite that I was using. It's kind of cheap material, so it felt amazing. But I go to my first nationals and I'm playing, and like I said, I got third in the open mixed doubles. But the match prior to that, I actually went down for volley and I kind of broke the corner of the paddle. So you could actually fold like the corner of the paddle over, like it had completely snapped. But I didn't have another paddle. I literally showed nationals with one paddle. So that shows how prepared I was back then. And so I played the bronze medal match at nationals, professional bronze medal match at nationals with broken paddle. Wow. And we lost in 3 games. And it was definitely the paddle's fault.
There you go.
But afterwards, I'm bummed. So I'm over sitting in my chair, and I'm kind of upset because, I really wanted to be in the finals, and my paddle's broken. I didn't know what to do. And I had to play again the next day, singles. And a guy comes up to me and he goes, "Hey, I loved watching you play. Great match." I go, "Oh, thanks, whatever." I wasn't really in the mood. And he goes, you play really well with that paddle. You like it?" I'm like, "Yeah, I love it, but look at it." And I showed him it was broken. He goes, "So follow me." Who is this guy? So I walk over to this Paddletech booth. The guy hands me 2 new ones. And I'm like, "Really? Thanks, man." He goes, "Yeah, my name's Curtis Smith. Nice to meet you." He's the owner of Paddletech. And so that was basically my first sponsorship. But no, they've always been so great. That whole company, the Paddletech, out of Niles, Michigan, it's a good family company. Curtis and Cody Smith, the brothers who started it, amazing guys. Always been so great to me. Just everyone there. I mean, you can say that probably about a lot of the pickleball companies. There's just good people in the sport, but there's some good people in that company, Paddletech. So it's a company that I feel like it's worth supporting. They've been here since the beginning. I still play with the same paddle, and I know they got some new ones in the works. Some new technology, new material coming in. So I'm excited for the future for them.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, pickleball is such a personal sport. There's so much emotion, friendships, community. I think, whether it's a sponsorship or a doubles partner or a coach, you want people that you can truly appreciate and enjoy, being on a call with, being in person with. I think that's a, really important part of anybody we get into a partnership with.
Yeah. Anytime I've ever needed anything, I reach out to them and they're right away on top of it. And so I just appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely. Couple last questions. So I'm curious for Kyle Yates' pickleball story, where do you see yourself in 10 years? Still playing pro, senior pro, just involved in the business side? What do you think you're going to be up to in 10 years?
Yeah, probably more back end stuff. Admiring all the new young kids that are coming out, hit stuff that I never dreamed to be possible. So definitely, I definitely, I'm not looking too far ahead, but next year for sure, playing professionally, a lot of the APP tour events, hopefully get drafted again for Major League Pickleball. That's been a lot of fun. And so, yeah, I'm gonna keep playing pro as long as I can. Next year will be a good year. I got some great partners I'm excited about playing with. So we'll see. It's hard to predict though too, because the sport changes so much so quickly. Yeah. In just a couple of years. 2017, they made the Pro Pickleball Federation, their tour, and then they fade away. And then you got the APP and PPA tours. They're here now. In a couple of years, who knows what that'll develop into. So I'm curious to see what happens. But yeah, I'm going to keep playing as long as my body will let me, and definitely get more involved with hopefully directing some tournaments or working some more with some of these companies on the back end. Helping out any way I can. I feel like I got a lot of experience that could be pretty valuable.
Yeah. Any new partners that you're going to be playing with? You're able to announce right now, or you're keeping stuff low key for the time being?
Let's just say me and the Romanian giant Andre Descu have some more work to do next year. Cool. So yeah, we had a good time in St. Louis. We hadn't played a tournament together in over 3 years before that. But I think we remembered how much fun we had playing together. And so definitely going to get some more tournaments with him. Who knows, you might see me back playing singles here one of these days.
There we go.
We'll see.
If you ever need a singles drilling partner, just let me know. Yeah. So, when it's all said and done, what do you want the one thing, your legacy, what do you want to be known for, at the end of the day?
People can talk about me all they want. I'm just trying to be myself, man. So I don't need to create any perception or whatever, but I just like playing pickleball, man. Honestly, I started playing pickleball just because I enjoyed it, and I figured if I can make a living doing it, that's great. I don't know what else I'd rather be doing, but people are always going to picture. Everyone's always going to have different opinions of you. So as long as I feel like maybe I can give back to the sport in a way, help a lot of people, and obviously play myself and not have to get a real job, that'd be nice. So
yeah, absolutely. And then last question. So you've been a pickleball player for many years, played thousands of matches, met players and fans all around the world, and really seen the evolution of the sport firsthand in a way that most other players and people have not. So what's one thing in your eyes that makes pickleball so different from every other sport in the world?
That's a good question. It's just I'm gonna say it's just like a combination of things, right? It's I like playing ping pong, but I don't feel like it's enough of a workout, at least the way I play, or at least I'm not surrounded by enough people. Tennis, you get more workout, but it's not as social. I feel like a lot of people get drawn to like basketball in a way because it's more social, a lot of talking and stuff, a lot of exercise. I think pickleball in a way is something that like everybody can play and have fun regardless of your level. Everyone's very welcoming, super friendly. I mean, you kind of have to be to be open-minded enough to go try out a sport called pickleball. You obviously got to have, something in you that is pretty welcoming. So I think just the friendliness of people, the fact that you can get games with people anywhere, that helps a lot. So it's crazy. I mean, it's a weird thing. I mean, growing up, I never expected to be, famous for something called pickleball. It just keeps growing. It's weird. I'm excited to see where it's going to be in another few years, because 2 years ago, I didn't think it'd ever get this big. And so who knows, they could be going to the moon.
The sport keeps evolving, and, your legacy keeps evolving with it. And, the sport would not be what it is today without what you've done for it. So, Pickleball appreciates you, and I appreciate you for coming on. It was a great talk.
Thanks for having me. Yeah, a lot of fun.